What if I told you that you've spent years living inside a prison you built yourself, and you can't even see the bars because they're made of approval, fear of judgment, and expectations that were never really yours? Sit with that idea for a moment, because it isn't just a line to grab your attention, it's literally the starting point for everything we're going to uncover together over the next few minutes. Think about your everyday life, the decisions you make each morning, the words you choose before speaking, the gestures you soften so as not to bother anyone, the dreams you shelved because someone, at some point, made you feel they were unrealistic. Now ask yourself, with complete honesty, how many of those decisions were really born from you, and how many were born from fear of disappointing, of looking bad, of being judged? Most people never ask themselves this question, and that's why they end up building an entire life around other people's expectations, convinced that path was theirs from the start. Let's call this the mental cage, because it describes exactly what happens inside the head of almost anyone who grew up surrounded by social norms, comparisons, and a constant need to fit in. This cage has no visible locks, no guards, no stone walls. It's made of thoughts repeated thousands of times, like what will people think of me? I can't fail. I have to prove I'm worth something. If I mess up, everyone will notice. And the most unsettling part of all this is that most people build this cage without even realizing it, brick by brick, from childhood onward, reinforced by every bit of praise received for pleasing others, and by every uncomfortable silence received for being authentic. I want you to think about something you may never have considered this way. The need for approval isn't simply a trait of a shy or insecure personality. It's a deeply human mechanism that got switched on in us since ancient times, when belonging to a group literally meant survival. Being rejected by the tribe once meant being left alone to face the dangers of the world. That's why our brain still interprets social rejection as a real, almost physical threat, even though today, it no longer depends on any group to get food or protection. The problem is that this mechanism, so useful in another context, has now become an invisible chain that pushes us to prioritize other people's opinions over our own essence. Now, here's where I want to bring in something that can completely change how you see all of this. Several centuries ago, a thinker named Michel de Montaigne asked himself a question that's just as relevant today as it was then. What does it really mean to live well? Montaigne wasn't after a perfect life or a spotless reputation. He was after something much simpler and, at the same time, much harder to achieve. Living in coherence with his own nature, without pretending to be someone else just to please others. And one of his most powerful ideas revolves around a concept I want to unpack with you calmly today: detachment. When we talk about detachment, a lot of people immediately picture something cold, distant, almost indifferent. But the detachment we're talking about here has nothing to do with no longer feeling, or with abandoning what you love. True detachment consists of no longer depending emotionally on outcomes you can't control. It consists of loving something deeply without needing it to stay exactly as you want in order to feel at peace. It consists of pursuing a goal with all your energy, without your entire identity collapsing if that goal doesn't turn out the way you imagined. Think about how much suffering actually comes from trying to control things that were never under our control to begin with. Other people's opinions, the future, someone's reaction to our decisions, the exact outcome of a project we poured our heart into. The more we try to control these external variables, the more anxiety we generate, because we're fighting against something that, by nature, is completely out of our hands. And here's one of the most interesting paradoxes of the human mind. The more we need to control everything, the less real control we actually have over our own inner peace. I want you to reflect on something very concrete. Imagine spending years and years working hard to achieve a certain status, a certain recognition, a certain image in front of others. You work hard, you sacrifice time, you sacrifice relationships, you even sacrifice your health, all on the silent promise that once you reach that goal, you'll finally feel like it was all worth it. But when you finally get there, something strange happens. The feeling of emptiness doesn't go away. It just turns into another goal, another comparison, another level to reach. This happens because, Often, we were chasing something that was never really ours. It was an inherited script, a definition of success we absorbed from society, from family, from the culture we grew up in, without ever questioning it. And here I want to pause on an uncomfortable question that few people dare to ask themselves. Did the studies you chose, the job you do, the relationship you're in, the goals you chase day after day, really come from your own desire, or did you simply inherit a path others laid out for you, without you realizing it? I'm not saying everything you've done up to now is wrong. I'm saying it's worth pausing, even just for a moment, to check where each of your important decisions actually came from. This brings us to another key idea. Routine can work like a silent anesthetic. When we fill every minute of our day with tasks, obligations, notifications, and small distractions, we avoid, almost without noticing, asking ourselves uncomfortable questions. Questions like, am I really happy with this life? Does this relationship nourish me or wear me down? Does this job actually mean something to me beyond the paycheck? Constant routine acts as background noise that keeps these questions from surfacing, because facing them takes courage, and often we prefer the comfort of repetition over the discomfort of an honest answer. I want you to think now about something Montaigne understood with striking clarity for his time. Being authentic almost always means disappointing someone. You can't live aligned with your own nature while also satisfying everyone else's expectations, because those expectations tend to clash with each other, and often clash directly with you. Someone will expect you to follow a certain career path. Someone else will expect you to behave a certain way in a relationship. Another person will expect you to keep up certain appearances in front of family or friends. Trying to meet all these expectations at once is simply impossible, and trying anyway ends up fragmenting your identity into 1,000 different versions of yourself, none of which ends up being fully real. Authenticity, then, acts as a natural filter. Whatever only holds together through constant pretending eventually crumbles, because it never had real roots. Relationships built on masks end up creating emotional distance, even when the people involved stay physically close. Achievements pursued only to impress others lose their shine the moment they're reached, because they never answered to a genuine desire. What's built from authenticity, on the other hand, though slower, though more uncertain, tends to hold up with a solidity no mask can offer. Now I want to take you into another territory that connects directly with all of this, and that holds a power very few people use consciously. The narrative we tell ourselves about ourselves. Every person carries, without realizing it, an internal story they repeat constantly, a kind of narrative that interprets the past, justifies the present, and projects the future. And here's the fascinating part. That story isn't always accurate. Often, it's just the version we learn to repeat, the label someone stuck on us years ago that we decided to turn into absolute truth. Think about phrases like, I'm a failure, this always happens to me, I'm no good at this, I'll never make it. These phrases, repeated over and over, aren't just passing thoughts. They turn into a kind of invisible script that shapes our future decisions. If you keep telling yourself you're someone who can't hold on to stable relationships, your mind will start looking for evidence to confirm that story, even ignoring signs that contradict it. If you keep telling yourself you always fail at your projects, you'll start abandoning efforts before giving them a real chance, simply to confirm the script you'd already installed. Here I want to introduce an important turn in this reflection, because it isn't just about identifying these limiting stories. It's about understanding that you have the power to reinterpret them. The past doesn't change, the facts already happened, but the meaning we give those facts can absolutely shift. The same situation can be read as undeniable proof that you're not capable, or it can be read as a learning episode within a much longer process. The difference between these two readings isn't in the facts, it's in the narrative you choose to hold on to about them. I want you to think of your own life as a book that's still being written. It's completely normal for there to be difficult chapters, wrong decisions, unexpected turns, contradictions between what you thought you wanted and what you later discovered you actually needed. No human story moves in a straight line, and expecting yours to do so only adds unnecessary pressure on yourself. Big changes in direction aren't signs of failure, They're a natural part of any genuine process of transformation. And here, I want to connect everything we've talked about so far. Getting out of the mental cage doesn't mean giving up effort, or giving up love, or becoming indifferent to life. It means no longer resting your sense of worth on pillars that depend entirely on external factors. It means questioning whether the goals you chase truly come from you, or whether you simply inherited someone else's script. It means accepting that uncertainty is an unavoidable part of any authentic life, and that trying to control absolutely everything only produces more anxiety, never more peace. And it means, above all, reviewing the story you tell yourself about who you are, because that story, more than the facts themselves, is what determines where you're headed. I want to close this reflection with something that sums up, in a way, everything we've gone through together. True freedom doesn't arrive on the day you get everyone's approval, because that day never comes. There will always be someone ready to question your decisions. True freedom arrives on the day you stop needing that approval to feel whole. It arrives on the day you let go of the obsessive control over outcomes that were never entirely yours to begin with. It arrives on the day you decide to rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are, not by denying what you already lived, but by consciously choosing what meaning you give to each chapter. You are not a side character in a story someone else wrote for you. You hold, right now, the chance to pick up the pen and decide, with all the honesty you can gather, how you want your own story to go on from here. If this reflection made you think about your own life, write, "I'm writing my own story," in the comments, and I'll gladly reply to you personally. And if you feel this video gave you something valuable, subscribe to keep exploring these ideas together, and leave a like if you think every minute you spent here was worth it.